On August 16, 1973, a young woman went missing in Springfield Township, New Jersey. Her name was Jeanette DePalma, and she was just 16 years old. What happened to her in the weeks that followed would become one of the most mysterious and disturbing unsolved cases in New Jersey history, a case that would spawn rumors of occult rituals, satanic cults, and dark secrets that some say remain buried to this day. Jeanette was described by those who knew her as a quiet, religious girl. She lived with her mother in a modest home and was known to be devout in her faith. On that August day, she told her mother she was going to visit a friend. It was a simple errand, the kind that teenagers make all the time, but Jeanette never came home. When evening fell and there was still no sign of her, her mother grew worried. By the next day, when Jeanette still hadn't returned, the family knew something was terribly wrong. They reported her missing to the local police. For 6 weeks, there was nothing. No trace of Jeanette DePalma could be found. Her family was frantic, the community was concerned, but the investigation seemed to hit dead end after dead end. Then, on September 19th, something happened that would turn this missing persons case into something far more sinister. A local man was out walking his dog in the woods near the Hoodile Quarry, a remote and somewhat forbidding area on the outskirts of town. The dog began acting strangely, pulling toward a particular spot in the dense undergrowth. When the man followed, he discovered something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. There, in a clearing surrounded by trees, was the body of a young woman. It was Jeanette DePalma. But the circumstances of the discovery were deeply unsettling. According to various accounts that emerged over the years, Jeanette's body was found in what appeared to be some kind of makeshift arrangement. There were reports of strange objects surrounding her remains. Some witnesses claimed there were wooden coffin-like structures nearby. Others spoke of seeing what looked like a makeshift altar. There were mentions of unusual items arranged in patterns that suggested ritualistic purposes. The condition of Jeanette's body made it difficult for investigators to determine exactly what had happened to her. She had been dead for weeks, exposed to the elements in the late summer heat. Decomposition had advanced significantly. The medical examiner struggled to establish a clear cause of death. Was it murder? Was it an accident? The physical evidence was frustratingly inconclusive. But it was the scene itself that generated the most speculation and fear. In the early 1970s, America was gripped by a growing panic about satanic cults and occult practices. Books and movies about demonic possession and devil worship were popular. There were widespread fears, later proven to be largely unfounded, about organized satanic groups operating in communities across the country. And now, in this small New Jersey township, there appeared to be evidence of exactly the kind of ritualistic activity that people feared most. Rumors spread quickly through Springfield Township and the surrounding areas. People whispered that Jeanette had been the victim of a satanic sacrifice. They spoke of cult members operating in the woods, performing dark rituals under cover of night. Some claimed that Jeanette had stumbled upon a cult gathering and had been killed to keep their secrets. Others suggested she had been specifically targeted, perhaps because of her religious faith, as a victim for some unholy ceremony. The local police found themselves investigating not just a death, but a case that had captured the imagination and fear of an entire community. They examined the scene carefully, documenting everything they found. But here's where the story takes another strange turn. Much of the physical evidence from the scene seems to have disappeared. Photographs that were supposedly taken of the site and the unusual objects found there have never been made public. Some researchers who have tried to investigate the case decades later claim that crucial evidence is simply missing from the official files. The police publicly downplayed the more sensational aspects of the case. They suggested that the unusual items found near Jeanette's body might have been nothing more than trash or debris that happened to be in the woods. They pointed out that the area was sometimes used by teenagers as a hangout spot, and that various objects could have accumulated there over time with no sinister significance. As for the cause of death, without clear evidence of foul play, Some officials suggested that Jeanette might have died from natural causes or an accident, and that her body had simply ended up in an unfortunate location. But many people didn't buy this explanation. Jeanette's family certainly didn't believe it. They were convinced that something terrible had been done to their daughter, and they felt that the investigation was inadequate. Community members who had heard the initial reports from the scene were skeptical of attempts to minimize what had been found there. And as time went on and the case remained unsolved, the official explanation seemed less and less satisfying. One of the most intriguing aspects of the case involves what happened in the immediate aftermath of the discovery. According to some accounts, local clergy became involved in the scene. There are reports that a priest was called to the location where Jeanette's body was found, and that some kind of blessing or ritual cleansing was performed. This detail, if true, suggests that even religious authorities took seriously the possibility that something occult had occurred there. Why else would such measures be necessary? In the weeks and months following the discovery, strange things reportedly happened in Springfield Township. There were claims of unusual activity in the woods near where Jeanette had been found. Some residents reported seeing figures moving through the trees at night. Others spoke of finding strange symbols or arrangements of objects in the forest. Whether these reports were genuine or the product of heightened fear and imagination is impossible to say, but they added to the atmosphere of unease that had settled over the community. The investigation eventually went cold. Without a clear cause of death and without any solid leads pointing to a suspect, the police had little to go on. No arrests were ever made. No one was ever charged in connection with Jeanette DePalma's death. The case file was eventually closed, though it was never officially solved. For Jeanette's family, this meant living with the terrible uncertainty of not knowing what had really happened to their daughter. For decades, the case was largely forgotten outside of the local area. But in recent years, there has been renewed interest in Jeanette DePalma's story. Researchers and true crime enthusiasts have begun digging into the case, trying to separate fact from fiction and uncover the truth about what happened in those woods in 1973. What they've found is a case file that raises more questions than it answers. Some investigators have pointed out that the satanic cult theory, while dramatic, may not be the most likely explanation. They note that there is no evidence of any organized cult operating in the area at that time. The objects found near Jeanette's body, they argue, could have been misinterpreted or exaggerated in the retelling. They suggest that the real explanation might be more mundane, but no less tragic. Perhaps Jeanette was the victim of an individual attacker, someone who killed her and left her body in the woods, and the unusual items at the scene were simply coincidental. Others have explored the possibility that Jeanette's death might have been connected to other crimes in the area. The early 1970s were a turbulent time, and there were other unsolved cases in New Jersey during that period. Could there have been a serial offender operating in the region? Were there connections that investigators at the time failed to make? There's also the question of why so much evidence seems to be missing or unavailable. The photographs from the scene, the detailed reports about what was found there, even some of the witness statements appear to be absent from the official record. Some researchers believe this is simply the result of poor record keeping or the passage of time. Files get lost, especially in cases that are decades old, but others wonder if there was a deliberate effort to suppress certain details of the case, perhaps to avoid panic or to protect the investigation. One theory that has gained some traction is that local authorities were genuinely concerned about causing mass hysteria. Remember, this was the height of the satanic panic era. If the police had publicly confirmed that they were investigating a possible occult murder, it could have triggered widespread fear and possibly even vigilante action. By downplaying the more unusual aspects of the case, they may have been trying to keep the community calm while they investigated behind the scenes. But if that was their strategy, it ultimately failed, because the rumors spread anyway, and the case was never solved. Jeanette's family has had to live with the loss and the mystery for over 50 years now. Her mother passed away without ever knowing what happened to her daughter. Other family members have occasionally spoken to researchers, expressing their frustration with how the case was handled and their continued belief that Jeanette was murdered. They reject the suggestion that her death could have been accidental or from natural causes. They believe someone killed her, and they believe that person was never brought to justice. The woods where Jeanette was found have changed over the years. The area has been developed, and the exact location where her body was discovered is now difficult to pinpoint. But for those who remember the case, those woods still hold a dark significance. They represent not just the place where a young girl's life ended, but also the site of one of New Jersey's most enduring mysteries. What really happened to Jeanette DePalma? Was she the victim of a cult, as so many people believed? Was she killed by an individual attacker for reasons we may never understand? Or is there some other explanation that has eluded investigators for all these years? The truth is, we may never know for certain. The physical evidence is gone or degraded beyond usefulness. Witnesses from that time are aging or have passed away. Memories have faded and been colored by the passage of time and the many retellings of the story. But the case remains important, not just as an unsolved mystery, but as a window into a particular moment in American history. The Jeanette DePalma case reflects the fears and anxieties of the early 1970s, a time when people were genuinely frightened about the possibility of satanic cults operating in their communities. It shows how those fears could shape the perception of a case and perhaps even influence how it was investigated. And it serves as a reminder of how difficult it can be to find the truth when evidence is scarce and time has passed. For Jeanette herself, the tragedy is that she has become more symbol than person in the retelling of her story. She was a real girl with hopes and dreams, a daughter, a friend, a member of her community. Whatever happened to her in those woods, she deserved better than to become the subject of rumors and speculation. She deserved justice, and she deserved to be remembered as more than just a mystery. Today, there are still people working to find answers in the Jeanette DePalma case. Cold case investigators occasionally review the file, hoping that new forensic techniques or a fresh perspective might reveal something that was missed before. Researchers continue to interview anyone who might have information about what happened. And online communities dedicated to unsolved mysteries keep her story alive, discussing theories and sharing what little information is available. The case of Jeanette DePalma remains open, at least in the minds of those who refuse to let it be forgotten. It stands as one of those haunting reminders that sometimes, despite our best efforts, the truth remains elusive. Somewhere out there, someone may know what really happened in those woods in 1973. Perhaps they were involved, or perhaps they saw something they didn't understand at the time. Until that person comes forward, or until some new evidence emerges, Jeanette's story will remain unfinished, a mystery that continues to disturb and fascinate more than 50 years after that August day when a 16-year-old girl left home and never returned. That's all for today. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.